it is necessary to purge the establishment.
What she's suggesting that churches do, a focus on...
That's not necessarily a good thing to start with. Stating
it wasn't around when we needed the greatest generation of the 30s or 40s.
It happened before the election because there are too many Republicans that are afraid that their wrongdoing is going to...
It's unacceptable, and I'm not going to sit here, stay silent, and not call it out. I'm calling out their lies.
Do they think that we are so stupid that we will not notice and find out?
I am a raging patriot. Hey, welcome to KSoK Uncensored. We have an amazing guest here today, and I'm so excited for you guys to meet her. What we're going to do, I'm going to go ahead and we're going to play our intro. Our co-producer, Drew, spent many hours making this, and it's perfect. So, Juan, if we can go ahead and play our intro for Lindsey, that would be amazing. Meanwhile, did you notice I cut my hair? I'm just going to fill the air. So, so I chopped off like 4 more inches, and my husband's not happy, and he said I look like my mom. So, so that's always awesome. But it'll grow back in a few months, right? It's okay. So, we're good.
It's all resistance, together resistance. 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 It's all resistance, you can't resist us. Can you hear me? Are you listening, sleeping? Shadows could be making history through the fire on the water. Used to be asleep, but now you are a conqueror. It's all resistance, together resistance. 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 It's all resistance, you can't resist us.
All right, that was awesome, Drew. Let's go ahead and bring in Lindsey herself. Here we are. How's it going?
Good. How are you guys? That was a great intro. Thank you so much, Drew. I'm very flattered.
He's amazing. And your pictures made it easy, right? They're beautiful. All right. So, thank you so much for coming on tonight. I really appreciate it. And now we both have ties to Oregon. Obviously, I reside here. But are you originally from Oregon?
I was born in California, but we moved to Oregon when I was in 6th grade. So I previously had considered myself an Oregonian.
Yeah. Hey, I'd say so. I think once you do 7 years, I feel like that's the rule of thumb. You do 7 years in a state, and you can call yourself whatever state resident that is.
Yeah, I think that's the amount of time you have to be living with someone to be married. So I feel like you're probably the same rules.
There you go. Yeah, exactly. I love it. So you were in the Salem, Oregon area. And for those that are unfamiliar with the state of Oregon, about an hour from Portland?
Yes. Yeah. An hour south.
Okay. So, and you owned a hair salon, and you had, in the salon, like many do, you rented out spaces, right, for other stylists. And
that is correct.
I would love to hear how this went down, because I swear I remember seeing you on the news. I mean, the local news here, I'm sure I did. And I was like, all right, but I had no idea. I didn't put 2 and 2 together until recently. So would you be willing to share your story about what went down and where you're at now?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's the story that has seriously changed my life in every possible way. We had been locked down by Kate Brown, as you know, since March 23rd.
Yep.
And on May 2nd, I attended an Open Oregon rally, and I decided I was going to open my business because 6 weeks was a long time. And this was 4 weeks past 2 weeks to flatten the curve, if you recall that. And we had 6 businesses. So it was a different story for our family, for a lot of families. We had 6 rents that we were still having to pay, 6 batches of employees, 6 utilities, 6 overheads. At that point, you know, Oregonians know that the unemployment system was completely backed up. No one was getting unemployment. We were not getting our PPP loans or anything. Yeah. So
I believe Oregon, the state of Oregon was writing IOUs. I'm not even kidding. I feel like there were IOUs like what California had done in the past. It's crazy. Sorry to interrupt.
I believe, no, that's okay. I believe that. I actually didn't receive unemployment until I moved out of Oregon to Arizona a year later.
Wow.
I opened the mail and I had unemployment checks, and I was like, oh, wow, thanks. A little late for that. I lost all my businesses, but thank you. So,
oh my gosh.
So May 2nd, I had posted in a group called Open Oregon and said, I'm going to open my hair salon. I need to provide for my family. We need to, this is not right on all levels. And I'm going to stand up to it. And that group was public, and I was not aware that that group was public. So at the end of the day, I checked my Facebook Messenger, and I had news outlets calling for comments and for interviews. And I went, oh, okay, so this is public.
You're like, all right, now it starts. So it begins.
The narrative, shall we?
Yeah.
I did end up on a lot of the local news networks almost immediately before I even opened my doors. And that terrified me because knowing that it was such a big deal, I really honestly didn't think it was going to be that big a deal, media-wise. And after it did become a big deal, I thought, well, I'm really committed to this now. If I back out, you know, I'm scared, and Oregonians are now counting on me. And it turns out Americans were counting on me because I was one of the first in America to do it. And so it was exactly the nightmare you can imagine. Governor Kate Brown did not like me opening up. She did not like that I was doing it publicly. She tried everything she could to intimidate me into closing. So over the course of those 10 days, I had outlined in the news what was happening to me, and they were threatening to revoke my hair license. They were threatening to revoke my salon license. They were threatening to kick me out of my lease in my building. They were threatening $50 a day citations, jail time, a Class C misdemeanor, and last but not least, Governor Brown sent Child Protective Services to my house and threatened the next day.
Oh, hell no. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah, it's like, if everything else wasn't bad enough, that's like literally as low as you can go. Like, that is so disgusting.
What's really sad is that throughout this whole process, so overwhelmed by everything, by the threats, but also by the support, and also by cancel culture, which came into play, which I never expected. It was like I didn't even associate the CPS visit with something that the governor would do to harass me. I just was like, what? This is just one more thing I don't need this week. A weird false like CPS claim. But he says, Lindsey, you just went on national news and said that you wanted to open to provide for your family. Of course they're going to target your kids. That's your weakest link. That's what they know. And they totally did. They went right for the jugular.
Wow. That is so horrible. So the ramifications, that's just like, I would say less than 3% of the U.S. population has experienced what you experienced through all of this, right? Because one, not everyone's self-employed. You had 6 businesses, and then in one of the most liberal states, if not the most in the United States. Wow. I mean, you just had it coming from all angles. I do remember seeing you on the news because I very much remember a local salon owner was making national news and local news. And yeah, you're right. You had not only people like myself that are like rooting for you, but you set the stage for businesses all across the United States, and especially in deep blue cities and states like us. So seriously, so
a red state. Opening in a red state would look very different than opening in Oregon. And I had no idea
right.
that Oregon was so liberal.
Wow. No, that is insane. I want to say thank you though, because it takes what I do, I'm doing it relatively privately. Yeah, people know my face, but they don't know my name or my employer or, things like that. And so what you're doing and what you've done is the next level of bravery. And when we talked last week with Juan and my one of my guests last week, and there are so many people that are patriots and they say they're patriots, right? But they're not taking it to that level that we need to take it to, like where you're at. And it does come with negative ramifications, but it's one of those things, we need people like you. Otherwise, we're going to be Australia before you know it. So, so my hat's off to you. Absolutely.
And you know what's crazy is this was almost 2 years ago. And at the time that I was doing it, like I said, I didn't realize it would be a big deal. But in the weeks that started passing and I realized it was a big deal, it's like I wanted to shake everyone and say, do you see now that it's been 18 months, do you see what I was fighting for? Because the cancel culture in Oregon said, you're a murderer. You're going to kill people. You are so selfish. All you care about is your stupid business and making money. And I was like, it has nothing to do with that at this point. And I just want to shake them all now and say, do you see? At that point, it was just, oh, I want to work. And now here we are fighting off biological chemical weapons in our body against our will. Like it escalated so quickly. You can't possibly go back to when I just opened my salon and not realize that was the first step of many that need to happen. And like you're saying, people need to rise up. You're not kidding, man. This is insane.
Yeah,
the cancel
it really
will
is.
come after you, but it's 100% worth it. We're fighting for our absolute lives at this point.
Right. No, we really are. And I'm just curious, now, going back a year and a half when everything was first going down here in Oregon and just across the country, but what triggered inside of you? What do you think made you take that risk to step up? Because there's so many people that were in your shoes, but very few that actually said, I have a lot to lose. And I'm going to just go for it and take this stand. I'm just curious, like, what do you think it is inside of you, or does it go deeper than that? Does it go way back to your upbringing, like where you said, I'm going to take this risk and the outcome's the outcome?
I'm excited about this question because it opens the door for me to say, if you would have asked me that while I was doing it, and even maybe like up into a year after, I would say that I have no idea what I was thinking or why I thought that I would be the person doing this. And now looking back over the whole journey, I can tell you with 100% certainty that even though I didn't feel like I was obeying, I was following in God's will for me. Absolutely 100%.
Love it.
He had already planned that this is who I would be and that this was something that prepared me for my whole life. And I had no idea. I didn't pray about it before I did it. Yes, I'm a Christian. I didn't believe I was, Christian for the job to be listening to God's voice. And I did it of my own decision. But what I know for a fact is that God had already planned that this was the fight that I was meant to fight.
I love that so much. That is so amazing because it's funny because it's like it wasn't premeditated, right? It was just like something clicked inside of you and you're like, this is what I need to do. This is what I'm drawn to do. And even, what you said earlier, it wasn't fully thought through because you didn't know that one page was public, right? So it's like, it's like that was, if that wouldn't have happened, you wouldn't have made the impact that you did make, even though it was very uncomfortable and had some very harsh ramifications. That's awesome. It does sound like a God thing.
I wouldn't take one thing back. I've been asked so many times because, I lost all my businesses anyway. I lost the salon I was fighting for. I was ran out of the state. We had to move to sell our beautiful home just built. And people say, well, would you do it all over again? Or what would you change? And I just have to be honest and say that I wouldn't change a single thing because every single horrible thing that was done to me had to happen for me to be where I'm at now. And where I'm at now, God is just opening doors, and he's blessing my family, and he's telling me, you're prepared for this, and he's reiterating it. And in Oregon, just being an owner and a business owner, I wasn't serving God. And as gratifying as it was in that time, I am so much more satisfied with my life knowing that I'm walking in his will and I'm fulfilling a very, very big purpose.
I love that. You know what? It really resonates with me because I do feel the same way. Like for what I'm doing, it definitely, my husband's a police officer here. And for me, it was like something clicked inside. I literally held up the phone and recorded a TikTok. I looked like hell, had no makeup on.
That's
I was
always
just
the
like,
way to go viral. Those are always
yeah,
the way to go viral when you're like,
and
this
that's
no
what
one's
went
gonna
viral.
like this.
Yeah, I had just gone on a run. My hair was thrown up. I was wearing like a jogging shirt, and I was like about to combust. I think I had just gone on my personal Facebook, which that's all I had at the time. I didn't have my alias or anything like that. But and I was just reading all these anti-police things by people that are like my friends and family, and I'm like, I'm gonna snap. And so I recorded that rage TikTok, and it went viral. I'm like, oh, that felt good. And so but there's been times, I mean, I'm shadow banned everywhere. I'm sure you've experienced that too. And so there's times where I'm like, God, what am I doing? Like, I need some direction or, something. And it just keeps, like you said, like doors open and, you just keep going.
Funny that you say that. I would love to go watch your TikTok, but I can't even log in. I can't even.
So you're like perma banned.
Oh, I'm banned permanently banned.
Wow.
Yep.
Wow.
I've tried new accounts, but they know my phone. So they won't even let me log in from my phone. I'd have to get like a whole new phone number just to try to sneak through TikTok's algorithm to get in. And by the way,
that is crazy.
I don't even post anything that controversial. I don't post anti-vax. I don't post, Trump won. I post like seriously messages about God and the spiritual war that we're in. And I woke up one day and it said, you're permanently banned. And I seriously haven't posted in 5 days. Okay. But
that's ridiculous. It shows who we're up against. We're up against literally the devil. Like, I know that sounds cliche, but we are up against pure evil. And I know for me, they must have my IP or something because this is my third TikTok account. I haven't even had anything suspended. Usually they say, oh, you violated this. No violations. I'm just totally shadow banned, and it's my For You page is turned off. So I'm like, I'm over this. I'm over the TikTok thing.
Yeah.
So, but it's frustrating for sure. So let's talk about, so you were like ran out of the state. So clearly you were completely attacked. What about personal relationships? How did that play out?
Oh man. Yeah, that was a rough one. I quickly learned that my Facebook had to get locked down and I didn't trust. I had stylists that were working at my salon for 4+ years. And when it came time for Oregon OSHA to come in and investigate me, which they did, of course, right away, they had threatened me with a $70,000 citation before I even opened.
What?
Yeah. And
That's
they said,
huge.
if you open your doors, we're going to fine you $1,000. And if you stay open, we're going to fine you $70,000. And I stayed open. I opened anyway. Well, they came back and investigated, allegedly, and they issued me a $14,000 citation. And I was the first business in Oregon to get fined, of course, because I was open. And OSHA contacted some of my like ex-disgruntled, stylists that had rented stations. And these are girls that I had supported, promoted, and like empowered for years. And they were so quick to lie, blatant lies, and say things about me to try to make sure that I got in trouble. It was just so alarming. I couldn't believe that people could be so vindictive just because politically they didn't agree with what I was doing. So one girl, of course, was like the polar opposite. She's a liberal, she's a leftist, she's, BLM and anti-cop and, anti-Trump and all this stuff. And she'd worked in my salon for, I think, 6 years. And she left. She just walked out. Whatever, no big deal. You don't agree with what I'm doing. But when OSHA contacted her, she just made up all of these lies, things that she was saying to try to get me in trouble and try to get me cited. So it was so alarming. I had to really put walls up around.
Yeah. Yeah, no, seriously. And it's one of those things where it's like I literally I was joking around with my girlfriends the other day who decided to get vaxxed, and that's fine, that's her decision. But I was like, you're gonna be I go, I'm gonna need you to buy me groceries when they start going with the
Yeah,
vaccine
yeah,
passports. I'm like, don't
I know.
don't Anne Frank my ass, okay? So
I
but it's true,
seriously,
there's very few that we can trust.
yeah, I went like nuts today at the gym. I had a few moments before I was picking up my kids from the gym daycare, and I just went down my little rabbit trail of like, how would we live off the grid? What else do I need to do to
Yeah,
prepare? And it was just so scary to read. I was reading an
yeah.
article about how to go off grid, and it was like, powering your own solar and electric and using wind energy. And I was like, I don't know that, but I'm gonna have to figure it out.
I know. It's so intense. I know. I the other day my husband, I was like going down the rabbit trail myself, and I said, "You don't even know how to hunt. We're gonna die," you know? And so he's like, "Oh my gosh." He can protect us and he can fish, but I'm like, "Oh my gosh, this is scary." But luckily I have a lot
Yeah,
of friends that do. But it's
yeah.
serious. It's
There's
like,
gonna need to be like communities built,
yes,
right? There's gonna
exactly.
need to be
Exactly.
communities, and like, I'm not gonna be the gardener, that's for sure. I will kill everything.
Yeah, I know. I'm like, I can do the DIY. I'll do the painting and like the repurposing, but
Yeah.
but yeah,
Well, and
no,
your
that's
husband's gonna be in charge of our policing. How about that?
there we go. Yeah, yeah, he'd be happy to. Oh my gosh. All right, let's talk about this book that you recently had come out, which is available on Amazon. And I know you have one right next to you that you can show us.
I do.
Beautiful
Yeah,
book, beautiful cover, great content. Love it. Targeted. And boy, is that appropriate. You've been targeted up the yin yang. It's
yes,
crazy.
absolutely. Yep.
Wow, I love
So,
it.
it's a great story too, because you're hearing some of the story in a nutshell. But this has been so. I started writing it about, I would say, 6 months ago, and God really called me to write it. It was very strange. Um, I have a personal relationship with God, and so I talk to him like I talk to you. And I was like, all right, dude, something about writing a book. You're going to have to clarify this like to the depth, because that's a lot of work.
Yeah,
I don't know if I can
yeah.
do it. I don't know how to publish a book. I don't know how to write a book. If you want me to do this, which I think you do, I need to know that it's not my own selfish motivation. I need to know that you're actually calling me to do it. And
Right.
within 24 hours, he had different people solidify me through 3 different messages that I was supposed to write a book.
Wow.
And so, yeah, it was amazing. Like I had a friend that I was talking to about it, and I said, so this happened and this happened and this happened, but I need one more sign. And she's like, you don't need one more sign. Those were all your signs.
Yeah.
And I was like, one more sign, one more. And then sure enough, like 2 hours later, and I had one more sign, because God knew that I was
Wow.
serious. I needed one more
I
sign.
love that.
Yeah. And so it turned out, I was supposed to be writing about my fight against the government and being cancel cultured to the max and all this stuff. And as I wrote the book, I worked through what I had been through. I worked through this resentment and hate that I was feeling towards these women that had turned their back on me and threw me under the
Right.
bus. I worked through that this was my purpose. I worked through losing my salon and my dream home, and I had just been ignoring the emotions that came with all of that. Like, I never stopped and looked back and realized I lost my entire life. I lost my entire identity. I lost everything that I was, 2 years ago. Everything that I was is completely gone. And what I discovered was that God wanted me to write this book so that I could find out who my identity was in him and who my identity was with this purpose. And honestly, as I started writing, there were so many things that I did not want to put in the book, because I've actually had a very colorful, painful life, especially in my early 20s. And I didn't want to bring those things out into the light. And I started trying to tell the story of how God made me for such a time as this. And I tell those stories without telling the bad stories that I didn't want to tell. And as I sat there and started writing or continued typing, God just kind of put those stories out there. And I realized I have to tell them. This is what he's allowed to happen to me. These are the choices I made as a young adult that I had. And God said, okay, I'm going to make those good. And he made them good because he used those to embolden me, to make me brave, to make me be able to endure cancel culture and not give a crap anymore. Think about me. Just the whole book was not really my writing anymore. I go back and read chapters and I'm like, dude, I don't remember writing that. I swear the Holy Spirit like took over and just started putting out the message that he wanted. And when I went back to go through and edit, I was like, I'm just going to leave that. I don't know what I was trying to say there, but I'm going to leave it. And so it really became my testimony, which is so awesome because it's like I'm sneaking Jesus into people's lives. They read this.
Yeah.
They see this cover with the American flag and they're like, oh, this is going to be political. And it's like, haha, I'm witnessing to you.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's amazing because I'm sure a lot of us have found ourselves saying, why are we around during these crazy times? I mean, seriously, I'm kind of like, I'm kind of jealous of my parents. They don't, not that they don't have a lot of time left, but just meaning like, man, we're in the thick of it. And it's for reasons like that. Like you were chosen for these times, as was I. And it's good that you were able to work through a lot of past stuff and then realize how it strengthened you and prepared you for the battle we're up against today, which is unlike what most have experienced that are on this planet right now. Yeah, that is so cool that you did.
Yeah, thank you. They're either living completely ignorant or living without Jesus, and so they don't realize what's going to happen, how much worse it's going to get, or they're living in compliance and life is good because they're willing to do whatever they're told to do and suffer the consequences, which is,
Exactly.
I am going to record my book on Audible. Someone is asking that. I don't know if I'm supposed to answer these questions, but
yeah, good job.
Yeah, I'm trying to do it right now. What's that?
Nice. I said, good job working that in. I love that. I was just pointing it out and you're right on it. Love it.
Yeah. I'm like, oh, I see questions. How cool. I love questions.
Yep. Yeah, no, it's awesome because they're live making comments, which is really cool. And
thanks, guys.
It's so many people. I've got the best subscribers and followers, and I just call them virtual friends. We've developed such great relationships, but I don't know. Someone's getting in a beef. No, they're just joking. But yeah, no, that's awesome. Okay, so you have your book, and please, everybody, it's available on Amazon. It's called Targeted, Lindsey Graham. Actually, Lindsey, it's funny. I don't know what happened, but I had mentioned I had put your promos out on my Instagram, and somebody thought I was having the politician Lindsey Graham on, which is I don't know how, because clearly I have your images there. He was like, "Oh, I don't like his policies," and I'm like, "What are you talking?" Oh, okay, never mind. I was like,
"Okay, you have to do this when we get off this call. Okay. You have to go on YouTube and type in Lindsey Graham hairstylist. You're not going to get any of the media that I was part of this last 2 years. You're going to get this really ironic video of me holding up the Senator Lindsey Graham's photo." Because, and this is in my book, but I'm going to tell you the story just because it's so funny. Contacted like 6 years ago by a media outlet company, and they said, we're trying to interview Lindsey Graham, the senator, but obviously we can't. So we're doing a satire piece, and we'd like to interview you, the other Lindsey Graham, and talk to you about your political policies. And I was like, well, that sounds fun. I like to be on camera. I think I'm funny. Like, let's do it. So they flew this reporter out from San Francisco to come to my salon, and they did this whole satire on what do you think about Lindsey Graham's hair, about Lindsey Graham's gun policy? What do you think about this? And it's still on YouTube, and it got
like my so cool
dose. It was my first dose of cancel culture because I did this and I was like, oh, that's hilarious. It was satire, it's funny, whatever. I don't know anything about politics. And people were like, she's so stupid. She doesn't know what she's talking about. She's a dumb hairstylist. I mean, it was like, oh, you guys are mean.
Lovely.
But I just
people are
was
nasty.
Like, oh, this is what they are. My cousin was on there fighting battles, and you don't know her. She's the sweetest person ever. And I was like, don't even worry about it. These people don't know me. I don't care. It's like I seriously learned how to battle cancel culture.
My name is Lindsey Graham, and I'm a hairstylist and salon owner in Salem, Oregon. Lindsey Graham were sitting in my chair. I would definitely cover those grays. There's a fine line between distinguished and old. The man needs a product. Okay, he's just combing over, slicking it, and calling it good. Make him a little more modern, maybe some shorter spikes. You're embarrassing.
You guys hear me?
Get above 1%, buddy. He needs to put himself out there more. He needs to get a first lady. Let's see, do I know any old gold diggers that would want to date Lindsey Graham? No.
When it comes to dealing with me, you got a clenched fist or an open hand. You pick.
When it comes to me, you might get like a little hand-on-hand action, like sweetness, and then if I don't like you, maybe we pull away and we're just like finger to finger.
We're not going to take your Second Amendment rights away.
This Lindsey Graham is very pro-gun. Not for criminals. Yeah, I love me some guns. No one takes my guns. We see eye to eye on the gun issue.
I think we need to repeal it and we need to replace it.
Obamacare needs to go. 2 points. I'm starting to like him. I might. Hashtag twinsies.
That is amazing. Seriously, what are the
How
odds?
amazing is
Oh
that
my
video?
God.
Did you see? You can tell that it was 6 years ago. It was like, be as tan as you possibly can. His hair as black as you can. And like Jersey chic, man.
I
my
love
God.
it. Oh my gosh, that was great. That is fantastic. I have to say, I really like your tattoos. And
Thank you.
you know what? I'm just going to put myself out there. I only have one, and it's a tramp stamp that I got when I turned 18.
Not a
It's
girl.
a sun, and it looks like it was drawn with a crayon. It's horrible. So, anyways, but
Oh
yours
my
are
gosh,
gorgeous.
that's awesome.
Yeah, it's bad. I forget it's back there, thankfully. Yeah.
I'm more
I love
tatted up
them.
than I was in that
Beautiful.
last one. I've got them like everywhere now.
That's awesome. Really
Every
pretty.
girl that's over, let's see, I don't want to age myself too badly. Everyone that's over like 32, 30, yeah, something like that, has a tramp stamp. Like we all did it.
Right. And
Yeah.
I'm 40. I definitely, it was like 18. I was 18 and I went with a friend and I was like, that one. It was like on the wall. It was a sun and it was
Oh my
really bad.
gosh.
So
Well, that was my first tattoo my second tattoo. My first tattoo was the Christian fish on my ankle, like literally 2 lines.
Okay.
Right? And then the second
Nice.
one I went with my best friend and we got matching tramp stamps and we picked it out of a book. It was like, oh, that color's
Yes.
pretty.
Oh.
So silly.
Wait, matching tramp stamps. That's like one of the best things I've ever heard.
Yeah. Girls who tramp together stay together.
Yes. Are you still friends?
We are, yes, actually, yeah. She lives in Oregon,
gosh.
and we don't talk very often. We went separate
Yeah.
ways, but I just texted her
Yeah.
the other day, and she responded, and we had a laugh
There you
about
go.
some old
That's a
times.
good sign. If they
Yeah.
respond, you're good. Oh my
Right.
gosh, that's
Yeah.
amazing. I'm so glad that Juan found that video because that was gold. That is so funny.
I know. Brandon.
Yeah.
Let's go, Brandon.
That was one of the funniest. She's like, don't you hear them? Let's go, Brandon. I'm like, what?
Okay,
idiot.
so the mainstream media is really trying to say that that's what people are saying. Is that real?
Oh my gosh. They're
Is that
literally
what they're
trying to say that. Yeah,
They think we're
that it was
stupid.
one clip specifically, one specific clip that really started it all. But yeah, she was like, "Oh, and I hear them now. Let's go, Brandon," because his name was
Oh my
Brandon.
gosh.
And then it just
I would love
took
to know if
off.
there's even a player. I would love to know if there's even a player named Brandon. Those teams. He's like, hey, the whole stadium's cheering for me. Nope. Sorry,
Yeah.
bud.
Oh my gosh. But yeah, the guy she was interviewing at the time, his name was Brandon. And so she was like, oh, that must be what they're saying. So yeah, she
Oh my
spun
gosh,
it.
how stupid
So,
is that? It was a
oh my
NASCAR
goodness.
race. It was a NASCAR race.
Oh my, oh, is that what it was? A NASCAR race?
Yeah. Joe Biden
Oh
was
wow,
not there.
clearly. Yeah, he was definitely I was like, all I know is the guy's name was Brandon. I saw the clip, but clearly didn't know the sport it pertained
Silly.
to. But
it's
yeah,
awesome
it's just
because now
crazy.
I don't like to say the F word, and I have 3 kids. So now I can just hashtag Let's Go Brandon, and everyone knows exactly what I mean. They seriously gifted us the ever. A way to say it without
it's
saying it.
hysterical.
Yeah.
I'm working on not liking the F word. You know, it's funny when I'm alone with my like friends or something out of my house, I'm like, wow, I'm a truck driver, so I'm working on it. But I think it's because I hold it in all day because I'm always around my kids. I'm working on that too. So, but the FJB, and hey, I just joined. I see that you are Lions Not Sheep,
Yes,
and
I'm
so
an ambassador for
they
them.
just approved me to be an ambassador with them too.
Yay!
So yeah,
That's awesome.
I'm excited. So
Their
I'll get
stuff is
some
legit.
gear.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And plus,
I
the
like
thing
their
about it is,
style.
not that I want to plug them too much because, I don't get paid or anything, but when you wear it,
Yeah.
it's like you're telling people exactly who they don't need to. And I wear it in the airport without a mask. Like, it's like I
Love
want people
it.
to know that I know that I'm not wearing a mask, And
Right.
they take one look at the shirt and it's like, everything you need to know about me is right here. So
Yes.
approach with caution.
That's the best. Literally, my plan this year is to wear like a cute black skirt for my Christmas card, but then have the Lions Not Sheep t-shirt with it. So I usually do like more dressy, but I'm gonna, and that way it's like in your face for all my friends and family.
Yes, I
Anyone
love
who
it.
even questioned where I stood. So,
Yep,
so that's going out there. I'm committed to it now.
Sweet.
But
I'm in.
oh my
I can't wait
gosh.
to send you. They've got some really cute stuff.
Yeah, no, I really like their brands. So many brands forget about women and
Mhm.
they expect us to wear masculine t-shirts. I hate
Right.
that. I will not wear, I don't
Yeah.
even like masculine t-shirts, especially when they just do nothing for us. So this brand really does think about the woman, which is so smart. So
Exactly.
Steve thought something was funny. Not sure what that was from, but thank you, Steve. I wanted to make sure we talked about your show that you have, and it's called She's So Right. It's the She's So Right show, which I love.
Yes.
Can you tell us about that and where to listen to you at?
Absolutely. So this is one of the amazing things that God has done since I followed his calling and stood up. My new life is that I have a radio talk show on Saturdays at 1:30 in Arizona. So right now, Arizona and Oregon are on the same time. And you guys change, so we always stay the same.
Yeah.
But it's on Saturdays at 1:30 on 960 AM The Patriot. And if you want to listen to it, you can actually just go to their website, which I believe is 960thepatriot.com, and just click listen now. When I get real tech savvy, we are going to be putting the episodes up on Rumble and YouTube. However, I am completely not tech savvy, so that could take but the radio station converts it into a podcast as well. And so when that happens, I will be sharing it on my Instagram and my Facebook. And yes, I will be utilizing Juan probably.
Yeah, he's like, he can help. Yeah, they're awesome. That's so cool. Yeah. That's a dream helped me too. Both of them, like, ooh, oh man. Well, awesome. That is so cool. I love everything you're doing. Like I said, I remember seeing you on the news. You resonated with me. I just recently put 2 and 2 together, and I just have a lot of respect for you. And it takes someone that's brave and strong, and just bravo. Seriously, we need more people that are willing to put themselves out there. So
I agree.
So thank you so much for
I'm
what you're doing.
hard. I'm trying really hard to be patient with people because I know that this is my call, and I know that not everyone has the same call. But I'm getting frustrated that so many of us are willing to lose so much, and others are willing at all. Like, you cannot sit back in the stands. This is not a spectator sport any longer. This is you're in the game. The game has been brought to you. You've been put in. So please play.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly. No, I'm with you. I have to remind myself about we're fighting for medical freedom. Not everyone needs to be like me. I have to remind myself that I can be a very judgmental person. I'm just going to keep it real. I am very opinionated, very judgmental, and I'm working on my patience as well.
I like you.
But I
like
do
you.
too. I want to make sure we remind people one more time. Can you show us your book one more time? That is out. I know we can get it on. We can get it on Amazon. Well, there's the image up there.
Targeted. You can get it on Amazon. It's the same price. However, if you buy it through my website, I will person and sign it and send it out personally. So
way
if
better.
You go to patriot.com, super easy, patriotbarbie.com, and I will personalize it and mail it out to you. So
I
Much
love
better
that
deal.
because then we're not supporting Jeff Bezos. He doesn't need any more of our money. So,
Exactly.
I mean, I am
Yes.
guilty. I
Yes.
do shop on Amazon. I am guilty. I'm
I
not
know.
saying I'm above that.
We
But if we
we
can
can't
get
have
it from you
everything.
directly, let's do that.
Yes. Yes, please.
Awesome. Awesome. Okay, cool. Well, thank you so much for coming on. I appreciate you and
you.
keep fighting the good fight. And I look forward to connecting in the future.
Me too. Thank you guys so much. It's been so much fun.
Thank you. Absolutely. Same here. Take care. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. What an amazing guest. I just feel so blessed to be able to connect with these people that are just, I look up to them. Seriously. Like I said, what I do is pretty anonymous here in my living room, but these people that get out on the street and take all these risks, it's just really admirable. All right, don't forget that we are partnered with MyPillow, and our own code is RAM, RAM. It's a hefty discount. I did the calculation once and it averaged around 60%. Don't hold me to that, but it's right around there. It's a hefty discount. Please go and support us, support Mike Lindell. He has spent a lot of money trying to wake people up. And thank you so much for tuning in. And don't forget, we have amazing shows after me, so stay tuned and have a great night.
If you're part of the law enforcement family, this is your show. Here we talk about all things Leo family life, the good, the bad, the funny and the sad, and everything in between. For the past year, we've all watched as the defund the police movement has spread across the country, leading to skyrocketing crime and violence. It's felt as though we've been traveling through the twilight zone. Enough is enough. Law Enforcement Today, America's largest police-owned media outlet, is leading the charge to fight back. And we're looking for you to get into the fight as well. On September 12th, 2021, we launched a nationwide Refund the Police campaign. We're planning a national media and advertising blitz aimed at rallying every single American. Click the link in the show's notes to find out how you can help. All right, guys, welcome back for part 2 of my interview with Jeffrey James Higgins. We continue to talk about politics and policing and the community. And then we talk all things writing. Take a listen.
So
Yeah, I think the average person needs to understand that, and they're just not. They need to turn off their televisions, first of all, or turn off corporate media, and because that's the true evil, I think, right now.
Well, they're lies. We saw it this week, right? And we'll know when. Listen, I've always said just withhold judgment till the facts come out. Like,
right.
I'm the first person. Like when people were accusing Trump of things, I'm like, great, investigate it. Absolutely, investigate it. If he committed crimes, he should go to jail, right? Like, I mean, that's my standard across the board. I don't care what your party is or who you are. So, like right now, the accusation is you have Border Patrol, mounted Border Patrol agents whipping people at the border. If they're doing that, I doubt that's in their policy, right?
Right.
But it doesn't look like that's what they were doing, right? It looks like they were holding reins and just using forces for ground control and to chase down people who are trying to sneak into the border, which is what their job description is. But look into it, investigate it for sure. But what you're not hearing is we need to investigate this. What you're hearing is, oh, this is outrageous, and Jim Psaki said, I can't even think of an instance when this would be justifiable, and the head of
yeah, she flat out said, well, I don't really know what happened, but it's terrible. Basically, like, okay, maybe you should wait and find out what happened before you make your judgment of how terrible it is, because we all know, and her included, knows that the media is just going to take that one piece of that sound bite of her saying how terrible it is and how wrong it is, and that's the narrative now. It's already a fact. Now it is officially whips and
And people will talk about it for years and refer to it even when if it's proved that it's not true. And we've seen that just over and over again. And the police officers who are tasked with enforcing the law, which Congress passed by people we voted into Congress, pass these laws, and they are told to enforce them. And they're always the bad guys, right? They are always, even when what they're doing is not wrong. And by the way, when it is wrong, there's pretty much people universally on both sides of the aisle call it out.
Right.
You know? I mean, when was the last
time?
Yeah,
the assumption is, and I hear it all the time from, anti-police people who, just find me to be the worst person on the planet simply because I'm pro-police. And their assumption is that because you're pro-police, you think all police are saints and heroes and do no wrong. And it's like, no, nobody hates a bad cop more than a good cop and a good cop's family. So,
Right, and I mean, and there are bad cops, right? I mean, there are cops who take money.
Right.
There are cops who abuse prisoners. Like, there are bad cops, and we should do everything we can. I've always been pro law enforcement reform. Like, you can always find sensible things. Here's the problem: when you're pushing these lies and when you're painting all police, and you'll hear things like President Biden said this, right? He'll say, "Oh, all police are not bad. However, there's systemic racism in policing." Well, you can't have both of those. If it's systemic, that means they're all involved in doing it, right? Or most of them, or a significant number are. But that's not true either. And so, when you do that, you're just tearing down the police. And there's been record retirements across the board, like in New York City and places like that. So people, they're not. They cut the funding, so they can't have new classes of police officers. Police officers who are able to retire are getting out before they get indicted or sued, right? So they're leaving. The cops who are there aren't doing anything proactive, so they're just waiting to be called. Then they're doing as little as possible when they get there because they're afraid to take action. And then, and so the next step of this is, well, we have to fill those positions. Places that have defunded the police are starting to refund. You're already seeing this, right? So there's some of them are starting to refund. Others are still defunding, while others are saying, hey, this isn't working. So you're going to have to hire more people. The problem is, who are you going to get to go into law enforcement in this environment? Right. And we saw this in Miami back in the 80s. Right. There was this huge diversity movement. We're going to hire people. We need more minorities. So we're going to hire people. So what did they do? They lowered the standards where they were literally hiring people with felony records. Right. I mean, just insane stuff. And then they had cops committing armed robberies in uniform. And, it was a disaster. Like, you have to have a standard. You have to pay them well and you have to back them. And if police how would you go into law enforcement today, knowing that if you get into a justifiable shooting, risking your own life, by the way, every one of these things, the cop could have been killed, right? He's risking his own life. And then you get into a justifiable shooting, you do everything right, and then you get indicted. That's insane, right? So
it's insane. It's not worth it.
Who's going to put in for those jobs? If you didn't like cops before, wait till the people who are going to come in the next wave of law enforcement. It's going to be people who want to have power over other people. It's going to be people who want to have a gun for the wrong reasons, right? All these good people that wanted to go into it to take care of their communities and help each other out are not going into law enforcement. And I don't blame them. I don't blame them. Until this changes, I don't blame them.
Right. Oh yeah. If I were, if my husband and I were many, many years younger and he was starting out on this journey and this was the case, boy, I would probably do everything in my power to convince him otherwise. And I know people who are in that boat and saying exactly that I don't want them to do it. I had a young girl, she's actually a high school student right now, and she messaged me to let me know that is the second that she could, she was going to go into the police academy and she wants to become a cop because she wants to do good things. And, she wants to go in for all the right reasons. And she said, my mother is so upset with me and she's just completely distraught because she does not want me to do this. And it's very sad because once a time, you're never as a parent, of course, or a spouse, you're never not afraid for their safety. But there's always been a greater sense of pride and the realization of being part of something bigger than yourself. And now the attitude is, it's not worth it. It's not worth it. And that's scary and it's sad.
And it's reasonable. Like it's a rational decision to come to not go into law enforcement right now.
Right.
And I don't think it can't last, right? I mean, we've seen this kind of anti-police sentiment before in the country, and it's turned into just horrible rioting and crime, and you have flight from the cities, and people just get away from it. And it's just so sad that all of this bad policy, and sometimes the cure is worse than the disease, right? In this case, the disease did not exist. It was intentionally misdiagnosed. And I say intentionally because it takes you, an hour of research for open sources to understand it doesn't exist. So that's every media outlet in the country. Are you telling me they can't look up the Bureau of Justice Statistics? They can't just do the math themselves. It's not that hard. So they intentionally lie about the disease, and then the cure is destroying ironically the very people they want to help. It's crushing these communities, and people who have money are just moving out of the communities. And that's just going to keep happening until they hit a point where somebody has to come in and, like what Giuliani did in New York, and say, you know what, we need law and order again. And then they bring law and order in, and it's good for everybody. Then business starts coming back in, and then with business comes more money and more tax dollars and better schools. And, it has this like cumulative effect. And we're seeing the opposite of it. Unfortunately, we're on the downside right now.
Right. Yeah, this is a relatively predictable cycle that we go through because, we're as people and as a country, we're incapable of, balance. So we always go from one extreme to the other. And, it would, of course, it would be a miracle if we ever just evened out perfectly. Realistically, that's not going to happen. But like you said, we are definitely in the down part of all of this right now. And we can only go up from here. I hope. I think a lot of people are waking up.
It can get much, much, much worse. I saw a statistic the other day. It's from FIRE, the organization, and they do free speech at colleges, and they just did a massive study, and the numbers were horrifying. It was a majority. I can't remember the exact number. A majority of students believe in shouting down people who have an opinion they disagree with, and it was over 20%. I want to say like 23%. Were believed in using violence to silence people who didn't agree. These are college students on our universities right now. And in some places it was much, much worse. Some colleges were just crazy worse. So no, things can get much worse than they are right now. And I think they will before people wake up. And the problem is, you have politicians pushing this false narrative, and politicians are doing it. Never trust a politician. Can we just say that?
Never.
There's some that are good, but they all have self-interest, right? They all want to stay in office. They all want to generate funding, for their next campaign. They all need to get people riled up so they can be the voice for the people. Like dissension gives jobs to politicians. The media are self-interested too, across the board. All media is self-interested, right? Like they're trying to make money.
Absolutely.
So when for them to create controversy, or for them to if people are clicking on a false narrative, then they're going to it's all going to be clickbait to get those people in so they can generate dollars. And that's not me saying that. That's them on hidden cameras saying it.
Yes,
from CNN to CBS, like across the board, these people have been caught talking about how they're basically just pandering to what they think the readers want to hear. So if you're a citizen, you have an obligation to find the truth. You have an obligation as a citizen to try to figure out what's right. Because you mentioned, how come we can't be in the middle? Well, what's the middle? The middle is like a reasonable place where you can say, oh, these things are going wrong, these things are going right. But that's not how we work. We're completely polarized because the people who are giving us our information are all lying to us because they're doing it for their own interests.
Right. Do you think we're ever going to see a day of media accountability? Is there ever going to be a bill or a law or legislation passed that for media accountability, that you better know what you're talking about or be, within some reasonable range? I guess everybody gets a little margin of error, but it's just a free-for-all. There's no such thing as news anymore. It's all tabloid. So
no, that's true. I mean, journalism is garbage right now. But as far as do I think there's accountability? I think accountability should come from the market. I think if a news outlet lies to you enough, you should stop subscribing to them. I think you should go someplace else. I think you should. I think and if you're talking about legislative accountability, I think that's a disaster. I think the last thing I want, and it will happen, by the way. I think you're going to see it in the next couple of years. I think. I mean, you've heard this administration talking about it. We have to find truth, and we need to police the truth, and we'll use social media to police it for us. And you don't want government deciding what's true. Government lies.
That is good point.
Everything. Right and left, government just lies to you all the time. So I want a free and open media, and I want people to be able to say whatever they want. But if they're not trustworthy, they're not trustworthy. Go someplace else. And I'll tell you what else. I would encourage people to seek out information on the other side of the aisle, no matter where you are politically, and then look for areas of commonality between the place you get your news and what's being said on the other side, because so much of it is lies, like just so much of it is lies, but there's a grain of truth in everything. And so if you can look where Huffington Post and Breitbart are writing about the same issue, and there's 2 or 3 facts in the article that they both say, that's probably true. Not necessarily, but probably true. Everything else is probably spin. You know, so look at the facts and then use your own mind to
That's like brilliant advice. That is excellent advice. I'm going to use that too, but as always, I will credit you for that. Oh, my God, we could go on and on and on about this. I think we said that before we started up that we could talk about these things just endlessly. But I know you have a life outside of this. So I will change gears slightly. I want to talk about your books. So I was very, very excited to realize that you are a very accomplished author. You have a new book out. It is called, hang on, I have it here, Unseen. Evil Lurks Among Us. This book looks so good. It is literally, so, you know, I don't know about you, but I have like my TBR list, my to be read list, and I just go down the list, and I have like a fiction book that I'm reading and a nonfiction book that I'm reading. So I usually have 2 books going on basically at once. I mean, not literally, but you know what I mean. And yours is the next fiction book up, and I'm having such a hard time now getting through the one that I'm reading. It's good, but I want to get on to this one. It is, I'm going to let you talk about it because I could just go on forever. But it's Dexter crossed with, what is it again?
I call it Dexter meets Homeland, right?
Yes.
So I've used my law enforcement experience. I've been in lots of violent encounters over the years, and I've worked a lot of terrorism cases, you know, over my career. So it's about a rookie homicide detective. So he's been on the force a few years. He was an economist, and he lost his father in the Boston Marathon bombing. And so he catches his first homicide, and it turns into a string of murders. So he's trying to prove that he's worthy of the badge and not just playing it cop. And he uses some of his economic theory as a rational way to approach, you know, his cases. And he's going up against a guy who's you know, right from the beginning, who's a vigilante, right? So the 2 of them kind of going back and forth between the antagonist and the protagonist. And so the book talks a lot about vigilantism and, you know, when, if ever, is it justified, and how do you deal with things when the rule of law is tenuous, and it's about a radical Islamic infiltration. So I'm lucky. I have a secret weapon. Now I've done a lot of terrorism cases with radical Islamists, but my wife is one of the world's leading experts in the Muslim Brotherhood and Islamic students. So I sort of have an inside track here.
Wow. That's very, very cool.
Coming out in March called The Secret Apparatus. You've got to get this book, by the way. You should have her on the show.
Absolutely. Please. Great. Yes.
She's a good guest to have. She is just her personal story alone will blow you away.
Oh, I would love to have her on the show. Yeah,
it's coming out with Post Hill Press in March. So my book is a fictionalized account, but dealing with real world things that are happening. Like everything that I say that's happening is actually happening, right? So it's sort of a way through culture and entertainment to inform people about things that are provably going on as we speak. So
I was going to ask you how much of this is fiction imitating real life here, and I got my answer. There's a lot of parallels here. Then obviously you had so much experience to draw from for this. Yeah,
the underlying terrorist conspiracy is real, and then the vigilante thing and the others. There's many subplots in this book, and there's complex characters. It's getting really good editorial reviews, so I hope you like it.
I know I will.
I have 2 more books outlined in the series. If it sells well and people want more, I've had some readers asking for it. I'll do those next.
That's awesome.
Here we go.
That's right. Hold it up. Yes, I love it. It looks so good. I honestly,
this was my first one. Furious.
I want to ask you about that one too, because that sounds like a true thriller here. I'm going to read a quick little piece of the blurb here. Trapped on a storm-damaged yacht, a grieving woman must conquer her worst fears and fight for her life in a story described as The Shining on a yacht. Oh my God, this sounds so good. It's on the, and now it's,
that was fun. That's a psychological thriller. So Unseen is a crime thriller. They're both thrillers, and Furious is more of a psychological thriller. Though it's this woman, you know, her husband takes her on this cruise across the Indian Ocean as a way to break her out of her depression, and then just really bad things happen. But it just won the gold medal from readers' favorites, and it's had some really positive response back. I'm so happy that readers are enjoying it.
Outstanding. Congratulations on that. That's really awesome. They sound like such great books. So I'm really excited to read them. And as a fellow author, I know how much we value reviews, so I will make sure to review them after. On what's your preference? Amazon, Goodreads? Do you have a preference? Do you care
I'm
where?
on all of them. I found that I think Amazon's selling 70% of the digital books now, and about 50% of all books. So I always ask people to just leave a review or just rate it on Amazon, because that gives you that third party, you know, verification that it's good.
Yes.
And so I've got over 400 reviews in the first few months. So it's
I saw that. That is fantastic. They are hard to come by, man. So that is so good. Now let me
feel bad, right? Asking readers.
Oh God.
I know you bought my book and enjoyed it. Now would you go do some homework and review it?
Yeah. Could you do one more thing for me? It's the hardest thing, but we have to do it. And I generally don't. So here's the irony. I don't read reviews. I ask for them, but I don't read them. You know, so just to preserve my own ego. So far they're good. So far it's been good. I think I had one person call me pretentious, or technically call my writing pretentious. But she only read I think she only read like the prologue or something, and decided from there. So I was like, all right, well, you can't please everyone, but
yeah,
it's
sometimes
pretty funny.
I did get a 1-star review, and the person said it's because a man should never write from a woman's point of view. I was like, well, you know, it's fiction.
Yeah, and you don't make the rules, lady. Or guy. Maybe it was a guy who felt that way. I don't know. But yeah, it's pretty funny. So readers can be very interesting. So let me ask you, author to author, how long does it take you to write a novel, specifically one of your novels? Do you have like a?
Yeah, I'm pretty fast. I write the first draft usually in about 4 to 6 weeks. I do NaNoWriMo every year, and that's National Novel Writing Month in November, and I'll usually write like 75 or 80,000 words in that month, and then I'll spend another couple weeks adding more to it, and and doing a structural edit. But then it takes me several months to edit it. Then I go through beta readers. I bounce parts of it off my critique group. Then it's finding the right agent to pitch it, and then going through publishers, and going through an editorial process with the publishers. So like from actually writing it to getting it out is usually a couple of years. But I write the book, with all the editing is probably about 4 months.
Yeah. That's funny. Same range. Yeah. That's funny. People are always amazed when we say that, but the rule is, and I'm sure you abide by it too, is that you have to treat it like it's the 9-to-5 job, and you have to be consistent. And when I tell people, they're like, wait a minute, you sit from 9 to 5 and just write? Well, not exactly, but not too far off from that either. When I'm committed to, I set a deadline and commit to it. And when I do that, it's, it's the 2,000 words a writing session, and then it's done before you know it.
I do that too. The word counts are great. When I'm doing a first draft, it's 2,000 words a day minimum. I usually get that done in a few hours. And then once you have books out, then you realize you end up spending 80% of your time on the business of writing, right? Trying to get reviewers, trying to get bookstores and libraries, and entering it into contests and doing ads, and on and on and on. Like it can suck up all of your time. So I try to do a little bit of everything. I've got 2 more books. I got a nonfiction book, Blood and Powder, which is about I was at the World Trade Center on 9/11. It was from that moment to pushing my agency into counterterrorism, and then going to Afghanistan, and then doing the first narco-terrorism case. So that's sort of the arc for it. That's out to publishers now. I've got some interest from a couple publishers who are looking at it real seriously right now. And then I have a small town murder mystery that takes place in the little town of Harvard, Massachusetts, where I grew up. And that's just went out to publishers like a couple weeks ago. So
fantastic. You have got some great stuff on the horizon. So are you doing any book signing events? Are you touring at all for any of these? And if so, where can people find you next?
That's a great question. I wish I had looked it up before. Yeah, I've been doing like writing conferences and things. I just said Creatures, Crimes, and Creativity in Maryland. I've got a couple local things. I'm in the DC area, so I've got a couple in Virginia. There's the Fredericksburg Book Festival coming up in a few weeks in October, and then there's another festival in Richmond that I'll be going to. And
Nice.
I've been doing some online events as well, which I find are kind of easier.
Yeah, they're very easy. I know I've grown very accustomed to living via Zoom here, and for stuff like this is it's fantastic because we can be in any part of the country, any part of the world really, and set up an interview, and it's perfect. Whereas otherwise it would be impossible, unless you're flying all over the place. But yeah, I'm not minding this. I'm an introvert. I don't know about you, but I'm an introvert. So, when I do all of my peopling, my extroverting stuff, I like to retreat to, home base here.
I don't know if I'm an introvert or an extrovert. I love people and I love hanging out with them, but then sometimes I don't. And if
You're a extroverted introvert? I don't know.
I don't know. Yeah, but it's helpful. Like if I do a TV appearance, if I go to like CNN or something, that's like the whole day. You have to get there and you're waiting and prepping, and then you do your thing and then you're back. As opposed to this, I mean, this is nice. Like I'm trying. My next thing is, and it's on my list of 700 things I have to get done this week. But I want to start reaching out to book clubs and seeing if they'd like to do. I'd love to be able to do that, and if people like the book, sign a few copies and that kind of thing.
Yeah, those are great. They're great fun. Those book clubs are a blast. They're terrific.
I just,
really
we're writers, so we're readers first, right? That's how we knew we wanted to write, because we really
exactly. Yeah, I knew pretty early on when I couldn't get my nose out of a book, ever, basically, that was my lane. It took me a long time to actually start it and do it for real, but yeah, I knew it early on for sure.
How old were you when you knew you were going to be a writer?
Oh, well, I convinced myself that I was a writer at like age 10, but I didn't actually take myself seriously until I was 42. So it was a long gap. I was spent a lot of time being a mommy, a stay-at-home mom, and then they had the audacity to grow up and not need me to do that anymore. And I had to figure out what I was going to do when I grew up.
I mean, I've talked to writers on these forums who started in their 70s. And it's like, great, maybe you're not going to write 70 books when you start that late, but you can write a bunch of them.
Absolutely.
And everyone you talk to is like, oh, I'm going to write a book, or I wanted to do this, or I wanted. And then sometimes I feel bad because I tell them about the business and the numbers. The numbers are terrible, by the way.
Terrible.
The average traditionally published author with the big five sells less than 5,000 books per title in a lifetime, like per book, right? Less than 5,000.
Right.
And they make, I think it was the Authors Guild did the survey. The number was like around $12,000 a year that the average full-time writer's making from writing. Like it's just, the numbers are terrible. So and then just trying, like I've had a couple agents, I've been lucky enough to get them, but the chance of even getting an agent is, I mean, it's like 1 in 10,000 or something,
Yes.
And then getting published after you get the agent's not even a guarantee, So the numbers are awful, but I always feel like they need the reality check. But what I tell them is the difference between people who want to write and writers are writers sit down and write, So like, how many times have you heard this? I'm going to write, when I finish or after it's always something has to come first and then I'll write. Well, then you're not.
Yes.
Writing. But if you sit down today and start writing it, guess what? You just became a writer.
Exactly. You are one step further than somebody who says that they want to write. If you're doing it, and that's the first thing, I actually mentor and coach aspiring authors, and and they're already talking about, they haven't even written the first word, and they're talking about when they publish. And I said, whoa, honey, you got to write first. You can't publish a book that's not written. So sit down and write the book.
No, that's good advice. And just honestly, just learning the craft. Like I always knew I wanted to be a writer, and I worked as a journalist. I was a reporter for years. And then I got into law enforcement, and I was doing, different kind of writing, right? Intelligence reports, like very different. I used to write a lot as a special agent, but it was very different. So coming out, I was like, oh, great. I read all the time. I'm going to write. It took me years. I retired in beginning of 2017. And it took me years to really get my craft up to where I started feeling good about it. And I read, I probably read 3 or 4 craft books a year, and I've been doing that for years, So again, these, I watch podcasts, I listen to other authors, I go to writing conferences, I have a critique group, I bet like, you have to do all that. and it can still take you forever to actually, and quite frankly, you're always getting better if you're doing it right.
Yes, that is so true.
I'll go through and I'll edit a book, and by the time I finish editing it, I feel like I'm a better writer than when I started the edit, and then I go back and I find more stuff. It's like unending.
Yes. Yeah, I've gone back to some of my, first work that I put out, that when I put it out, I thought it was really great. I was really, really proud of myself. And then, each time I go back to it, I'm like, oh, that can be improved. That can be improved. And, it's an endless cycle. There's I don't think there's ever any such thing as truly being satisfied with your own work, especially as time goes by, because like you said, you learn more about the craft, you grow as a writer, and, you know how to do things better. So yeah, it's great and terrible.
I'll tell you, I know I'm done when I literally can't look at it anymore. Like, and I'll set it aside and come back to it. Like I usually set it aside for a few weeks when I'm done. And then I see all these, and by the way, print it out on white paper, because your brain actually processes it differently than on a computer. And then I read it out loud, which, sometimes I'll go for walks and I'll be reading this thing out loud, because you want to hear the cadence and you catch all kinds of things when you're actually speaking. And then, so I do all that, but you just, if you just keep doing that, and then eventually you're like, okay, I've done this 30 times. I can't, I'll start and I'm like, I can't get through page 1. And I'm like, okay, it's done.
Right. Yeah. When you're so over it, when you can, when the words back and forth, backwards, upside down, all around. And yeah, that's true. I've gotten to that point with each one of my books. I've finally just said, I'm so sick of you. And that's the send off. I'm so sick of you. I gotta send you out. You gotta go. And it's always hard.
I don't know if you use this, but I'll give you a tip. Pro Writing Aid. Do you ever use that?
I love Pro Writing Aid. Yes,
it's really good, because it basically you open your documents, and I use Scrivener is like what I write all my stuff in. But I use Pro Writing Aid. You can open a Word document, or you can actually write in it, and then it has like 15 reports or something, 15, 18 reports.
Yes, like everything under the sun.
Yeah, but you won't catch them by yourself, it's because it's your own writing, because your brain will fill in words because you know what you wanted to say. So there's cool reports, like one's called Echoes, and you plug in, and it'll just show when you're using the same word too much in close proximity, and you go, oh my God, I'm using the same word like 3 times on one page, you never catch it if you didn't have this report. So
oh yeah, thanks to Pro Writing Aid, I discovered that I used the word just an absurd number of times. It's such a weird, in my mind, it's such a weird word to overuse. I'm like, why am I using that word so much? But now I'm hyper aware of it, and I try and avoid that word completely.
I do too.
Yeah, it's great.
Just very, all these words. I don't use adverbs, right? And so my goal is 0 adverbs. And then, of course, they find their way into the book. But when I'm trying for 0, it's like a reasonable amount of adverbs. Otherwise, it's all over the place.
Yes. No, I agree. My God, I think we went to the same school of preparing, or of novel writing.
Yeah, it's a school of making a bazillion mistakes. That's
Yes, anytime I've ever done a talk on the whole writing process, which has been a while because COVID kind of messed all of that stuff up, I always tell them that listen, I am here to throw myself under the bus so that you don't make the mistakes that I made. And they're pretty appreciative of that, because I made tons of them, and I own them, every time. But you learn from them, so that's what makes them valuable.
All through the process. From not just the writing or the what my developing a writing practice, but querying agents, and then dealing with agents, and then finding publishers, editing with I've made mistakes across the board with launches and with everything. So it's when people ask me, I tell them, I'm happy to share. I get people who contact me on LinkedIn all the time. They're like, oh, I was a former agent or police officer and I want to do this. And then I go through all the numbers and they're like, oh my God, maybe. I'm like, no, but you have a story to tell it. But here's what you have to do. And the key is understanding that you just can't, I have this great story. It doesn't work like that. You have to learn how to tell it. You have to learn what sells. You have to learn how to write it. Then you have to learn how to get it to the right people. And there's a lot to it. It really.
Yeah, you truly have to have a deep passion for it, and just that desire that borders on need to get your story out, to do this, and not think about the potential of dollar signs, because the potential is pretty small.
Yeah, you're not going to make anything on your book. I mean, it's just there are cases every year where somebody writes like a first book and makes a ton of money, but the reality is you're just not going to make much. You know, like I think I make like 30 cents on when someone buys something on Kindle Unlimited or something, and you know, and like the digital copies, I'm making like 70 cents, and I'm making like 250 on a hardcover, like, you know, because after your publisher, and then you know, you're spending money. I think I've actually lost money on my first book, like just because
I'm sure,
advertising, trying to get people to know that it's out there and that it exists, because I'm acquiring readers, so it's like a startup company. I don't mind spending money to acquire readers, because once they read it, then they like my stuff, then they buy the next book. And I've heard the magic number is 6 books. Once you get to that, like 6 books, you tend to be able to start generating some income, because people read number 6 and go back and buy the rest.
Yes. They do. You're right. They do always say, you know, you should have a body of work if you're serious about making this, you know, in any sense of the word, your career or profession, or at least part of one of your careers or professions. You need to have a good body of work out there, so that people will keep coming back to you and have a reason, because a lot of people do. I do it too. If I find an author I like, I need to have everything that they've written. You know, I need to read all of their books once I read one. So, and I think a lot of readers are like that. So you're absolutely right.
Yeah, it's a known quantity, right? You know you know what to expect. You like the reader. You like the way they deliver it. They have good stories. Absolutely.
Right.
I do that too, which is part of the problem, because that's what the publishers are pushing. The same, like if you look at the New York Times bestseller list, it's basically half of them are the same people that were on there 20 years ago. Like literally the same people. You know, so
same people.
Everyone else you're trying to break through, and there's something like 2.5 million ISBNs that are issued for new books every year. It's a ridiculous number, and that doesn't include like the Amazon self-published ASINs, right? So there's millions of books that are coming out every year. So to kind of rise above all that noise and say, hey, this one's actually good, you've got to get reviews, you got to get people to notice it, and it's it's hard enough with a big publisher, but I have I have a mid-sized publisher, I guess. It's hard.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I've gone both routes. I've gone traditional publishing, small publishing house, and I wasn't happy with that experience. It turns out I'm a control freak. I didn't know that about myself until they changed my book covers on me, and I didn't like them, and they had the ultimate say in it, and so that didn't work well for me. And so, you know, I started up my own little publishing, you know, one-person publishing company, and I do it. I'm a one-woman show, and it's not going to, you know, which means that it's not going to get far as readership unless I invest heavily in it, and still no return necessarily. But I like the control.
Well, you know, your concern about the cover is justified. That's one of the main reasons people will buy a book. And a bad cover, they won't even pick it up. So you know, that's what people see. Then they have to look, the copy has to be good on it. They have to look at the back cover and go, oh, that sounds interesting. Like you have to have a nice hook, you know, and then they might open it up. And then if they see editorial reviews, they go, oh, well, Kirkus liked it. And, you know, there's somebody trust them. And so, you know, I think when people are picking a publisher, you've got to look at the covers they do, because some of them do horrible covers, and it'll kill your sales. Like you literally won't get to sell the book.
Yep. Absolutely. That's an absolute fact. That's the actual case. It's a 6-book series, and they have the first 2. They've got it for a couple more years. I'm trying to get the rights back. We'll see. I don't know. But yeah, and I knew as soon as I saw the covers, tried to persuade them otherwise, and I knew it was a bad fit. And
that's normal, right? Like even in the big 5, you generally have no say. Like you'll say it on the cover, and they'll be like, well, that's too bad, because even your like acquiring editor doesn't have any say. It's the marketing department that does it. They have a design department, but the marketing drives everything, where your book is, how they're going to pitch it. The marketing department determines whether they're going to buy your book or not. If they say no, we don't know how to position this, and it doesn't matter how much your acquiring editor loved it. They're not even going to get it.
Right. Yeah, their exact response was, I was very polite, of course, made a gentle suggestion, and their response was, we know what sells in this market, in this genre, so, you know, we're good, we've got this. And they were completely wrong.
Yeah, that was my next question. Well, did it? You know, because
no, they, you know, their perception, you know, the cover that they used was, you know, it's like it's a small town saga, you know, it's basically like a soap opera, romance genre, you know, contemporary women's fiction, that lane, but it's not steamy. It's not, you know, your typical heaving bosoms covers or anything like that, or stories, I should say. And the cover that they picked, it was a couple on there, and yeah, it just didn't fit. It didn't fit. It didn't give the essence of what was inside the book. So it was misleading. You know, I tried telling them that. They put the blurb. This was the weirdest part for me. They put the blurb in first person, but the story's in third person. Thought that was weird. So, you know, hard lesson learned. Hard lesson learned. I got a little too excited.
Like if you look at like a book like this, right? Like you have to be able to tell the genre. You can kind of, you know, the way the font that they use here, the silhouette of the guy, you can see the capital here, right? This is Georgetown, right? And so you have a feeling it's a thriller, and you know you can kind of get that. If you I've seen them that are completely misleading. You know, and you have to also, it has to be kind of interesting, right? You have to look at it, you want to look at it. Like I picture when I was a kid. What did you pick up when you were a kid? Like going through the library, I'd see like an adventure scene on a book. And I was actually looking at some of my old books when I was a kid here, and I was looking at them the other day, and a lot of them have like, you know, like revolutionary, like war scenes, and things that a young boy's interested in seeing. You know? And but that's it. It's the cover. Hey, so can I ask you, you have your own publishing house, so do you hire out editors? Do you have multiple levels of editing?
Yeah, I go through the whole thing. I do all the same things. I do the beta readers, test it out with them first, and then once it goes through all of, you know, I do usually do like about 6 rounds of edits myself. Then it goes to the beta readers. They do different things. Like, you know, I let them kind of do their own thing. You know, I have one that likes to just look for grammatical errors, you know, likes to look for things like that. Another likes to look for just the flow of the story. So I let them have, you know, free reign with how they want to do that. Then when that's all done, I'll send it out to an editor. I actually like the editor that I used, or that the publishing company set me up with the books with them, and she has since gone off on her own, so I use her, and she's lovely. But yeah, same thing. It's, you know, you do all of the same things. You know, it's coming out of your pocket, of course, but you also, at the same time, you keep more in your pocket.
A lot more, right? If you're selling it digitally, you can get about up to 70%, depending on how you price it, as opposed to, you know, I get 20% of net, or you get 10% of gross, depending on the contract. And that's not a huge number if you're selling, you know, just a few thousand copies.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yep. So yeah, that's what I do. I'll do, it depends. I was doing some hiring out for cover design for a few books, and then others I've been doing on my own. I got to get back to writing. It's been a little while. So when I do, I'll decide on the fly if I'll do the cover or somebody else will. If they can, I have the vision when I get the series back in my possession, then I already know what the covers are going to be. I can't wait. I can't wait. So that in that way, it's going to be like releasing a whole new series in a weird way.
Yeah, that'll be fun. And I've known some authors who've done that and who've done well, because you only have to sell a fraction of the books to actually make more than through a traditional publisher if you're taking 70% of the profits yourself.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah, absolutely.
I would really recommend going with someone who does good cover designs. Like you can get a top of the line cover for $300 to $500.
Oh yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
You can spend $70, but you can also spend just a few hundred. And since it's such an important part of the book, you know, and like giving them some ideas about like what the feel for it or what you want or elements on it. Like my publisher is great. Like these Dave King is the guy from Black Rose Writing as the publisher who does the designs, and Reagan Rothé is the guy who owns the company. They listen, you know, when I say, oh, I kind of want these elements, and they do it, but they do it better than I would have ever done it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, they do little things. Like I don't know if you can see on this. There's a second set of like eyes up here, you know, behind.
Oh, wow. Oh, yeah.
Face, you know, kind of hinting at a problem. There we go.
Right. Oh, that's really cool. Yeah. Yeah. That's
So
awesome.
I think that's definitely worth the money. The one place I don't outsource is I'm like a publicist, which I know they can be good, but all that I've heard are horror stories. Like I don't know anyone, like personally, and this is anecdotal, so I know there's good publicists out there, but I've heard one person who spent, because they'll charge you like $5 or $7 or $9 grand or 15 grand.
Yeah.
Whoever got their money back from what they did. So I contacted a few. I was like, well, what do you do? And I was like, you know, I can do that. Like it's
right.
a pain in the neck, and I won't do it as well, but I can do it. I can pick up the phone. I can write query letters and send them out to reviewers. I can do that, you know.
Right.
So that's where I saved my money, and then I spent all that money on Facebook ads.
Yeah. yeah. I played around with Facebook ads on and off for a while. I wasn't seeing a return, which doesn't mean that the ads don't work. It means that I didn't really know what I was doing, basically.
Yeah, I think they do work, but you have to be able to pick your right audience who gets them, and you do A/B tests so you can see what works and what doesn't. And then you have to have the right art. So I have a great designer, Sarah Burr. She's a really terrific designer who does my ads. Books to Bundles is her company. There's a plug.
Oh, nice.
she's really good. Yeah. And, so, you know, I'll do the ads, but then you also, like, I think I'm losing money on them, like, overall, but I know it generates readers, because I would like increase an ad sale and watch my Amazon ranking go up that day. Like, they do it hourly, you know? So I would have a sale, and all of a sudden I'd see a bunch of sales, like dramatic. You know, so I know they work if you get the right art and in the right copy, and you have the right audience who's interested in that type of book.
Absolutely. Oh my goodness, I could keep you on here all day. We could just keep going all day. You cool with it? I wouldn't do that to you. So listen, thank you so much for having this conversation with me. We got to cover so much fun stuff. I'm just blown away. I have a feeling that this is going to end up being a two-part release. I'll probably release half and then release part 2 the following week, or maybe even just a few days later, because I'm impatient. I know I have no patience, and I want everything 5 minutes ago. So maybe I won't make anybody wait too long for the whole thing here.
Yeah, one on law enforcement, one on writing, right?
Right. Yeah. We might just split it right in half, just like that. I think that's probably exactly what we're going to do. If you're cool with that, that's probably exactly what I'm going to do.
Whatever works. I love talking about this stuff, especially writing, because that is really solitary. And it's nice. You know, I'm lucky. By the way, I have this critique group. It's called the Royal Writers Secret Society. Is that the best name you ever heard for a critique
That is
group?
the best name ever. Yeah. I feel like it needs to be a book.
Yeah, no, I've thought about it. They're terrific, and they got a couple best-selling authors in there, and that group has helped me bring my writing along so fast. You know, like if I had just been making those mistakes on my own, I'd be years behind where I am now.
That's so cool. Hey, does your wife's book, is she in pre-order yet, or not yet? She had got
not
to
yet,
that
but
phase?
soon. It comes out like March. I want to say like March 20th. Like, so it's coming out in March by Bombardier Books, which is an imprint of Post Hill Press, which is a really good publisher. And they're doing edits now, so it'll be out soon. But yeah, it's called The Secret Apparatus, and I mean it's going to be a huge splash. Like, she's briefed hundreds of members of Congress. I wish we had time so I could tell you her story. This is amazing. But she's from Egypt, and she's basically, she went from being banned in print in Egypt, like literally you go to jail if you mentioned her name in Egypt, to now they put her picture on the masthead of the largest circulation newspaper in the Middle East. And the president is basically quoting her when he does his speeches, and she's been getting calls from members of parliament and things. So,
oh my God.
Yeah. It's amazing. She's really been able to change the face of politics in the Middle East. It's an amazing story, but her stuff on the Brotherhood, she's going to get flack from the right and the left, because she's calling out the Brotherhood and this radical Islamic infiltration and what they're doing. And then she's going contrary to sort of the orthodoxy in a lot of these think tanks. And she's been studying this stuff for like 25 years. She knows this stuff better than anybody. Since she was a teenager, she's been studying this stuff.
Wow. Oh yeah, Jeff, I need her on the show. I need her on the show.
Like she's amazing. She's done a lot of she's done, you know, everybody. She's been on Fox, and she's done everybody. So she's a really.
I don't know if she'll want to come on my little old show to see how I made myself sound sad and pathetic. And
no, it's a great show. And by the way, your audience will love her, because she's all about, she's super rational, right? So everything that she does is fact driven. So when she says something, it's not like, oh, this is my opinion. She's like, no, this is from their own words, and here's the documents, and here's a link where you can hear it yourself. And you know, she has almost 1,000 footnotes in this book. But it's crazy stuff. Like, this is the ammunition that everybody needs to fight radical Islam. Seriously, this is it. She's calling out the group that's behind all of it. That founded everyone from Hamas to Al Qaeda.
Wow. Well, this is gonna be huge. I'm very excited for this. Yeah, absolutely. When the second, if you think of it, of course, I know it's like not, the only thing you have going on in life to email me, but when she's ready with a pre-release, please send me some links so that I can share it and pre-order and do all that stuff too, because that sounds incredible.
Yeah, I definitely will. I think your audience will love her.
Absolutely. Terrific. All right, Jeffrey James Higgins. I got him on the show. Best day ever. Thank you so much for coming on. I'm probably going to harass you to come back again many, many times if you're willing.
Oh, I'd love to. Thanks for having me. What a great conversation. Police work and writing. That's a good day right there.
Oh, that's a great day right there. All right. Thank you so much. Take care of yourself and we'll talk soon.
Great. Thanks. Bye.
Take care. If you're part of the law enforcement family, this is your show. Here we talk about all things Leo family life, the good, the bad, the funny and the sad, and everything in between.
Hi, I'm Charley Sauer, president of the Market Institute and editor of U.S. Policy. Today, I want to start off with a story. You see, once upon a time, a politician noticed that drug prices had risen. They noticed that this rise had affected 66% of their constituents. So the politician visited the Wicked Witch of the East and asked her to do something about this problem. She gave the politician a cure and sent them out to sell it. The politician stood on his soapbox and did his best. This oil will cure the itch, the stitch, the palsy, and the gout. Whatever be your problems, this cure will find them out. Their constituents bought the cure and everyone lived happily ever after. Okay, well, not exactly. While this would be nice, the real world doesn't work like a fairy tale. But the left still wants us to believe that it does. They want us to believe that they can merely mandate lower drug prices and bam, lower drug prices will be realized. While in some ways that is a great and simple mindset, believing in fairy tales, the truth is that reforming a market isn't that easy. The Democrats introduced and passed H.R. 3 out of the House of Representatives earlier this year. H.R. 3 does a lot of things, but one of its core elements is a drug price control provision. The bill instructs the Department of Health and Human Services to average the prices paid for certain drugs in Australia, Canada, France, Germany, Japan, and the UK. And U.S. companies would not be allowed to sell their drug for more than 120% of that average. If a drug manufacturer decided to ignore this new provision, they would be subject to a new onerous tax of 95% that would make it unlikely that any of them would even consider noncompliance. The problem with the idea of price controls, like with anyone that is selling snake oil, is that the solution is all sales pitch and no real relief. In the case of H.R. 3, the solution is so bad that the cure is worse than the disease. In fact, over the next decade, we would see 25% fewer new drugs coming to market. Over the next 2 decades, we would see 330 less new drugs coming to market. The problem is drug prices are rising, and they're rising for several reasons. First, drugs are getting better. They're getting more effective and they have fewer side effects as research and development gets better. Second, the government has moved its way into the market and made it easier for more and more layers to be added to the system as well. I wrote about this in regard to insulin a while ago, but the addition of middlemen to the drug market has caused more prescription prices to grow at an unacceptable rate, and the entire process is hidden away from the public's eye and the market's eye. In fact, when these middlemen can be cut out of the equation, the prices drop to something bordering on ludicrous. For example, there's a doctor in Kansas that buys his drugs wholesale and passes the savings on to his patient, which in some cases, this can save up to 95% for his patients. Doing this, he can sell prescriptions at a lower price than even Walmart. What this doctor in Kansas is doing, though, isn't magical. It isn't a fairy tale, and it isn't snake oil. It is just cutting the middlemen out of the market. But even given the non-perfect nature of the U.S. drug market, we are still better off when it comes to drug access when compared to the nations included in the HHS mandate. For instance, according to a 2018 analysis from Pharma, while U.S. patients had access to 100% of new drugs on the market to treat respiratory illness, Canadian patients only had access to 55% of these new drugs. The same goes for the other countries when looking at new cancer drugs and antivirals. Drug price controls have repercussions. They have side effects. If a drug manufacturer is not allowed to sell a drug for a market rate, they are both less likely to sell that drug, and even more ominously, they are less likely to develop new drugs. The way to reform the system isn't by snapping our fingers and calling it good. It isn't by going out and selling snake oil. The drug market can only be reformed by giving the patient back the power and therefore eliminating the leverage that the middlemen have in the market. We need to unleash innovation. We need more solutions, not more mandates. These solutions are not going to solve the problem overnight, but they will not cut off access to life-saving cancer drugs or remove the incentive from drug companies to develop even better solutions in the future. We don't need fairy tales. We don't need snake oil. We need innovation, entrepreneurship, and less government instead of more. Again, my name's Charley Sauer, president of the Market Institute. Please subscribe to this channel and come back for more videos in the future. Thank you.
It is necessary to purge the establishment.
What she's suggesting that churches do, focus on.
That's not necessarily a good thing to start with.
They're stating
It wasn't around when we needed the greatest generation of the 30s or 40s or.
It happened before the election because there are too many Republicans that are afraid that their wrongdoing is going to.
It's unacceptable, and I'm not going to sit here, stay silent, and not call it out. I'm calling out their lies.
Do they think that we are so stupid that we will not notice and find out?
I am a raging patriot.